Professor Ashish Khokar.
Ladies first. Ladies should be first, but I take
Shri K.K. Gopalakrishnan. Lalitha Venkat. And Shumita Mahajan.
To India First Dance Museum shaping up in Kerala. He chairs the Dance History Society of India and holds a special academic dance discourse which has instituted 5 awards named after the legends. The website which he runs is www.attendance-india.com, and his paper is on making space for dance, the attendance model. This is the first under the editor's focus group.
अभी हम कला में हैं, हम कसाई नहीं हैं, हम बैंक में नहीं हैं, हम रेलवे में नहीं काम कर रहे, या हम कोई गंदी नालियाँ नहीं साफ कर रहे। कला का मतलब ये है कि हमें कुछ अच्छी विचारधारा, कुछ हमारी जो संस्कार हैं, उसकी हमें सोच, और जो आगे आने वाला समय है उसके ऊपर हम ध्यान दें कि ये जो कार्य पिछले कई सालों वर्षों से हो रहा है, युगों से हो रहा है, उसको आगे अगली जनरेशन में कैसे लेके जाए। Up till now we've heard a variety of speakers since morning, all very erudite, seniors with vast experience nationally, internationally. And if you think the role and task of being a critic is difficult, try being an editor. Edit, or it's built within the word editor. The play itself is very important because it shows you how a language is treated. We speak in English, a lot of us are familiar with this medium, but even in vernacular languages we speak, it could be Tamil, it could be Gujarati, it could be Gurmukhi, Bangla, any language, we all have some felicity with it. All Indians by an average speak 3 languages or use 3 languages, which is their mother tongue, their city tongue, and their background tongue. So my mother is Tamilian, my father is Punjabi, I know both the languages, at least the spoken part. My first girlfriend was from Bengal, so I learned some Bangla to impress her. I was born in Baroda, Gujarat, so I have a smattering of Gujarati, or I understand Gujarati. But my working language is English. Even if I learn French, Italian, or Swedish, English is a language we all connect with each other, various parts of India and internationally. The attendance model is very interesting because when we heard in the morning speakers like Sunil Bhai and others, when the mainstream media, like Times of India, for which I also wrote in Delhi and then continued in Bangalore, did to not waste space on classical performances. They had space for Bollywood. They had space for fashion, food, finance, technology, perfumes, what have you. But they didn't have space for classical forms. And I must say, my editor, who trained me very well, Dilip Padgaonkar in Delhi, said, Ashish, your constituency is only 2,000 people. Your readership, from our pool of 5 lakh circulation those days, now it is maybe much more, this was 20 years ago in Delhi. He says out of 5 lakh circulation, those days Hindu had 5,000, Statesman had 2,000, other newspapers had maybe 1 lakh or 2 lakhs. Times did have very large circulation. He said the basic constituency for dance is only about 2,000, give or take on a good day, which is also true when we see our audiences in the cities today. And some of you as dancers, gurus, practitioners, exponents know how difficult it is to get audiences, how difficult it is to fill a hall of 500. So on any given good day, in any city in India, if 500 people attend a dance performance, as Padma Subramanian said to an empty hall last year when an award was being given to male gurus, there were only 50 people at the award ceremony on which Birju Maharaji was bestowed this award, Purusha Festival. She said, Ashish, it is not these 50 people, the quantity, but each one represents 500. It is the quality of the audience which is equally important. That don't go by numbers alone, that it's only 50 or 500 or 2,000, but the quality is equally important. An editor, by definition, must have an overview. An editor, by definition, must not be judgmental. It can be mental, but not judgmental. That's because they're all streams of opinions. They're all streams of thoughts. They're all categories of people who one will be responsible for through that page or publication. I'll give you good examples from 3 issues we did in the last 15 years of attendance. One was on Gujarat, one was on traditions of East, and one is the recent one on Telugu traditions. The one in Gujarat was done in 2002. That's when the earthquake had come to Gujarat. Modi Sahab had just as chief minister for a week. The issue could not even be launched, though it was done later. And after a year or so, the Gujarati press woke up to realize that if only the issue was in Gujarati and not English, it would have been more meaningful for the students, because very few of them read English. Likewise, in Karnataka, everyone felt an issue should be in Kannada, but not in English. We go to Manipur, Naga, Assam, Guwahati, wherever, and we find the same regional focuses. Best issue was the recent one, which was on Andhra traditions. By the time we started work on the traditions, that was a year ago. It takes a year almost to put an issue together. And that's because we try to encompass as much information which is both relevant, historical, topical, and educational. Because this does become a book which stays on shelf for long. A newspaper, to put us critics down, there were many people in Delhi and elsewhere who would say, "Arey, newspaper to hafte ke baad kabadi ban jata hai." We wrap our lunch in that. After a month, we don't need it. But the same newspaper cutting, if you need from 1958 today, or from 1972, or from 2002, it becomes a valuable piece of evidence, both for dance and for show political progress of our society. So never dismiss the importance of the written word or the physical feel of a paper. That's a bit strange coming in the digital age, but Gujarat issue happened. The issues on traditions of East, guest edited by Shyam Hari Chakra here, released by Sunil Gangopadhyay in Calcutta. And the recent one, when Andhra traditions was planned, the state got bifurcated. To be politically correct and not to create riots, even on a dance issue, we did not wish to go through with the issue and called and changed not to Telangana or Simandra issue, but to wide encompassing Telugu traditions. So an editor must have an overview to see the sensibilities of the readership, to understand the nuances of cultural progressions in a society at a given point in time, and also to assuage and see how all sections of society which are going to be its reader are taken into account without sacrificing both the content or the concept. An editor also has to take a stand. It is not easy. Bit like critics, editors are nothing. They have just got donkey's work from many critics and they put an issue together. So don't think editors are any higher position than being a critic. I was a critic for 20 years in Delhi, in Bangalore. And when I shifted to South to look after my parents, to serve my father, it was equivalent to doing 5 PhDs, not one, learning from him. He was my role model. Some of us know Mohan Khokarji, we remember him. And he taught me tea. Brevity means using very few words for long lines and sentences. What Uday Shankar once said, what you cannot convey in 10 minutes, there is no need to stretch it to an hour. As in editing, so on stage, brevity is very important. Editing is not only applicable in journals or writings or newspapers or magazines, but also in dance productions. Often we come away from productions and we almost say, phew, to kitna lamba tha. 15 मिनट कम कर सकते थे. ये प्रोडक्शन 1.5 घंटे की ज़रूरत नहीं थी, 40 मिनट में हो सकती थी. It often happens. That's why editing is an art which not only applies both to the written word, but also to a production on stage. And if you see some of the pioneers, Ram Gopal, Uday Shankar, Guru Gopinath, Anand Shivram, the first generation of dancers, you will see it had brevity. Their items were 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 7 minutes, and they won the audiences over immediately. Of course, as society progressed, as forms were discovered and established and re-established and refined, we had a wider repertoire, not only in Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Odissi, and the forms which were discovered later, but all through. Editor must also realize that the written word travels very, very far. You may write something innocently today, but that will catch up with you 20 years later. Or sometimes we get a letter from Jalapa in Mexico or Bolivia saying issue of 2009 on the Ashtanaikas, can we have a copy? Unfortunately, dancers in India are Brahmagyanis. I say unfortunately because the sentence is not complete. It's very good they are Brahmagyanis. but they don't read much. We have spoken of this in the morning, especially books and journals. It's only that instant review, that instant gratification, which now with the culture we have, Twitter Nama and Facebook, have displaced books. It is very important for students who are budding journalists, artists, media people, filmmakers, costume designers, that we take into note that all that we absorb is a continuous process. So when we take up this idea that something written today could have far-reaching consequence, because it will become a reference point for what I write for your PhD. What Sunil Bhai wrote 40 years ago is being copied or is being recycled or is being restudied and re-examined now in the light of view of what has happened now in society. Bollywood is a very good example since we live very close to it. Pune is not very far from this culture, and Bollywood is all pervasive. Is Bollywood bad? No, Bollywood gives employment. Bollywood is a happening, a young statement of young India. Nothing is good or bad. I go back to the first line, one cannot be judgmental, especially while putting together an issue, a newspaper page, a magazine feature. It's very important to have a subject control and command. If I talk of Sucheta ji, if I have not heard of Parvati Kumar ji, if I have not heard of Sarfoji too, if I don't know the Nirupmas, if I don't know Ragapantu Virali is the mainstay, I have no business to be writing that piece. I can learn about it, I can do research, or I must know about it. There is no shortcut. There are no excuses. Once your name is in print, once it is there in public domain, it is there for long. Unlike the digital media, where you can remove your footprints now, there's always a backup. Somebody has saved it somewhere. Until 6 months ago, under Section 72A, anything was not admissible in courts if written on the digital media. That law has changed now. So anything you write on Facebook, on especially public domain, it can be a blog, it can be a letter to anyone, it has a footprint somewhere. So one has to be very careful of the written word. The written word is a very, very powerful tool. It is very powerful and useful in the right hands. It's a very powerful tool in the wrong hands. After all, what is the written word? It's a thought process. What we think, what I speak, what I share goes to you. It might motivate you to put a book together. It might motivate you to put a production together. It might take you on a journey which is totally different. In last 30 years, because of the shortage of space in media, and I would not really blame the newspapers because, as many of our speakers in the morning said, the readers never wrote in. They only gained. After Subru, perhaps I have the distinction of having maximum lawsuits in Delhi by very famous dancers. Of course, the issues were very, very petty. One of them, a senior prima donna, I won't name her, bless her soul, she's still with us, was very upset that in my first book on Bharatanatyam, I had made her sound 70 when she was only 69. Honestly, it took me 3 months, 20,000 rupees with a lawyer who was a friend of mine, fortunately also represented a film star called Amitabh Bachchan, so he was very astute, and he said, Ashish, this is the way to solve it. And good, I went and talked to her because it transpired she had never sent me the legal notice. Her manager thought he'll make some quick money from some upcoming struggling writer and had done a lawsuit. Subru had got so many lawsuits. This is an occupational hazard. If you take a stand, you have to pay a price for it. You may be not in part of some committees or gangs or groups. You may not be part of some very popular happening social event. But a critic is to be read, not to be seen. A critic is to be read. New York Times critic does not go and wants to be visible and social. And as we said in the morning, Sunil Bhai read in his paper, that there are certain protocols and processes to be observed. A critic's role is very, very serious role because you're an assessor. I think critic word and criticism, the translation as we absorbed it from West, became a negative connotation. Instead of calling it assessment in English, critic sounds, अरे आपका काम बुराई करना, इसके आपको पैसे मिलते हैं. That was a common Delhi refrain or somewhere in North India. अच्छा आपको तो इस बात की बुराई करने के पैसे मिलती है तो बड़ी अच्छी बात है. 400 मिलते थे वो अलग बात है. ज़्यादा पैसे नहीं मिलते थे. Which brings me to this point somebody raised now about art, right criticism as a profession. In attendance, we have discovered a lot of new writers over the last 15 years. I would say Suhani Singh in Bombay. She is now with Time Out and has gone to India Today, Bombay. We had Lada Gurdain Singh. Of course, TV was more happening. and he was more visible on the television after being in Delhi and writing a book on Subru Mama. So there are a lot of youngsters all over the country we try to develop. But because it's not an economical profession, or it is not a profession, it is a labor of love, many do not have the staying power. You have to sacrifice a lot. You have to give up a lot because you're not doing anyone a favor. Basically, that's the nature of the profession. No one asked you to be a dancer, or asked me to be a musician, or asked me to be a filmmaker, don't work, or a book which doesn't sell. But this is our journey. This is our path. भगवान ने हमें यही काम दिया है. तो जो हमें मिला है विरासत में या हमारी अपनी मेहनत से, जो हमें काम भगवान के, अगर हम उसको सेवा मान के चलें तो उसमें बहुत मेवा है. जो काम आपको मिला है, आप इस ब्रह्मांड में आए हैं, इस पृथ्वी पे आए हैं, जो भी हमें काम सौंपा गया है, ईमानदारी से करें, अच्छाई से करें, बिना किसी को कष्ट दिए अपने काम में करें. सत्य की हमेशा ही जीत हो. खाली बातें नहीं हैं. ये छोटी सी ज़िंदगी का तजुर्बा है. मेरी उम्र ज़्यादा नहीं है, मैं केवल 13 वर्ष का हूँ, क्योंकि मेरा जन्मदिन 4 साल में 4 साल के बाद 1 साल में आता है. 29th of February, I am a leap year born. So in this gathering, I must be the youngest today. Be that as it may, somebody came and said, sir, how could you do 40 books or so, either editing or photographing or publishing or writing in the last 20 years? This also is very important question. In the 20 years in Delhi, we are so busy networking in Metro India that we cannot do any serious work. It takes long to do a book. Whereas in a smaller town, Baroda or Bangalore is not so small anymore, or Pune or Kanchi or Trichy or Salem or Jalandhar or Chandigarh, you have a lot more time, especially if you wish to do research, if you wish to progress, and if you wish to write books. Shyam Hari Bhai mentioned in the morning that dance writing and criticism is not the only way for somebody interested in dance. It could be making a film. It could be biographies. As he mentioned Sanjukta Nani's case, no one has written anything. Ilyana has written one on Kelu Babu, but there's none on some of these dancers. And it is very important we document some of these dancers now, because that is how our heritage will be safe and it won't be lost. Attendance has achieved that. What is attendance? Attendance was Mohan Khokarji's idea, and he felt, based on the ballet annual of Arnold Haskell in England in the 1930s and 40s through 50s, he said if something could be compiled between 2 covers, that will save our memory. I'm talking this of 16 years ago, before internet came, before the digital age. So it was very important to compress this in some form which could be codified. And if I wish to go back in time and say, when did Ram Gopal die? I forget if it is 2002 or 2001. But if you open that issue, you will clearly know that's the date. Of course, now with everything being on digital and on portals, it is very easy to trace that. But 15 years ago, this was not the case. Attendance is once a year. Because Times of India and others did away with the space, one could always create a space. So never say never, never say no. There's always an option. It is your determination, your hard work, and against all odds, if you wish to do, बड़े काम ऐसे ही होते हैं. ताजमहल बनने में भी 26 साल लगे थे, 30,000 लोगों ने मिलके बनाए थे. शाहजहाँ की ट्रेजरी बिल्कुल ख़त्म हो गई थी. उसके बाद वो इतना गरीब हो गया था कि उसके बच्चों को उसको जेल भी डालना पड़ा. लेकिन ताजमहल तो आज तक टिका हुआ है. तो ये ऐसे काम, बड़े काम, ताजमहल हो या कोई किताब हो, वी आर रेफरिंग टू नाट्यशास्त्र स्टिल टुडे. Till date, there's discourse on the discourse of the discourse of the discourse. So dance writing or dance compiling in a form of a book or a journal, and in a country of 1 billion plus, we have only 3 or 5 or 10 dance critics nationally. We have only 3 or 5 or 10 journals on dance or music. Maybe music is well off because it has recordings. In a country of 1 billion, despite vast forms and so many dancers today, we have so few qualified people who can take this forward, which is why universities become very important. Teachers like Parimal Bhai or gurus like Sucheta and many others in all other cities, your indicators and benchmarks for taking this forward. Please do not think you are just doing MA pass, BA pass and time pass and PhD pass. This will stay with you for life. ये आपकी ज़िंदगी भर काम आने वाली चीज़ है. हम लोग आज आपसे मिले हैं, कुछ कुछ बातें शेयर की हैं. शायद कोई बात, कोई अंगारा कहीं बन जाए, कोई चिंगारी बन जाए और आपको कुछ लगे कि ये मुझे करना है. 10 साल बाद इसी विषय पे एक फिल्म बन सकती है. आप ही का कोई यहाँ से पुणे फिल्म इंस्टीट्यूट से जाके कुछ मटेरियल बॉम्बे से लेके यू कुड रिकन्स्ट्रक्ट. So an inspiration can come from anywhere. In case of attendance, the inspiration was Mohanji. I do miss him very much. His continuity, in some ways, the material continues through forms of books. Attendance is finally, I'm happy to say, finally solvent or breaking even. It took 15 years to do that. We found writing and printing and publishing is the easy part. It's the distribution and the sales, in absence of any ready readership of terms of people buying books in India. Instead of giving flowers and shawls on stage, if each dance institution, guru, an annual day function partakes of any journal which is available on dance or music or that subject and gives that, it will help. Please clap. Since you started it. Really, who are we publishing and writing for? Leela ji is lucky she has the Hindu. Sunil bhai, I were lucky, we had the Times of India. Now we have portals, we may do our own blogs. But who are we writing for? All of us. This is collective work. ये हम सबका काम है. हमारा काम, there is no division. Since morning I've been feeling that ऐसी एक दरार invisible है कि आप वहाँ हैं, हम यहाँ हैं, आप critic हैं, हम artist हैं, हम कलाकार हैं, आप हमारी अथाई नहीं कर, क्यों नहीं कर रहे, उसके संदर्भ में आपने काफ़ी सुना. बट इसमें देखने से पता चलता है कि हमारा अपना ही है. कला की फील्ड, अगर हम सरस्वती के उपासक हैं, अगर सरस्वती माँ की हम पे पूर्ण कृपा है, तो हम सब वही कर रहे हैं जो वो करवा रही. We have also discussed few points in the morning, which I'll just reassess and represent. I did bring up that point about what is really dance assessment. I'm wearing these rings. This is copper, this is silver, this is gold, 1 carat, 18 maybe, and this is gold, maybe 22 carat. Who tells me that this is copper, this is silver, this is 2 types of gold? Any ordinary jeweler who has some idea of metal, or metallurgist, or an astrologer would know this is the metal. Likewise, a long-term observer or a short-term observer or a rasika would know what is the content of a production, what is the inner meaning of that item. We don't have to go only for extremities, only for the technical aspects, but also the birth. What वो क्या कहना चाह रहा है artist? Music, painting, sculpture, and the written word have made end product. Dance has none. There's music recordings, there are films, there's sculpture, painting you can enjoy, and they also grow in value over the years. But dance is so fragile, it is so peripheral, it is so transient, it is so transcendental. It is very important that we all contribute whatever our little might is to make this art stay, grow, and reach far and wide. When we think of India and Indian identity today, what do we export? It's not our steel, it is not our coal. Sorry, that's a wrong word these days. It is not our technology. That is one part of it. It is our identity. What makes us Indian? It is our cultural identity. Where does culture come from? These are the manifestations. Dance, music, literature, painting, films. These are cultural expressions. And this is why the Indian identity and the best export item from India, if we may call it that, is our dance and music forms. And how do we undervalue it through policy or through programs, which, as somebody said in the morning, crores are spent on festivals, not much reaches either the artist or the proponents who take it forward. For over 20 years now, I had compiled a list of 108 greats, not in dance alone, but films, theater, sculpture, painting. I've sent the proposal from every channel in the country. Out of those 108, 50 are dead and gone. Only 50 are left now. Even then they're discussing, should we document or not? Now Zora Sehgal passes away at 102. Do we have a good half an hour, 1 hour documentary on her? Yes, maybe because she was connected to theatre and films. But when a great dancer passes away, we just show snippet of 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Maybe Academy has archives of most of the artists they have awarded, but Academy has a protocol that they can only record those who have been awarded. So those who have not got award for some reason would be left out of that documentation process. So all in all, we come back to editing. Editing is an art where you have to have an overview, a bird's eye view, and a view from within. I repeat, you have an overview, you have a view from within, and a bird's eye view which is all around. So you can see where it is going. When you plan a page, you have 5 pressing news or 5 important articles, you see which one to prioritize. You have an issue. Now, already we are planning our next issue, and I have to take a call between dance education in university or Zora Segal. Because Zora Segal is topical and dance university education will take 2 years to compile, we will need that much time. So you have to plan, you have to fulfill that mission with a vision. There are 1 or 2 points which I have noted, which I'd like to share with you. We talked of dance definitions, we talked of dance terminology, we talked of essential aspects of what a critic or assessment or an editor is. For young upcoming artists and writers, we have the platform of blogs now. We have portals. You can give your opinion on Facebook. As somebody said, you can send instant reviews. But are you, in a way, taking the art forward? Or in a way, it is instant gratification, which makes it popular for a while, but doesn't go very far. Also, don't mix up issues. Sometimes what happens, it is very catty or chatty to write in a style where one would think this works very well for this audience. But the same may not work in Paris. The same article may not work in America. The same piece which you're writing sitting in Madras or Bangalore or Baroda or Pune may not work to an audience of same cultural disposition somewhere else. But that should not stop you from stating what you wish to state. An editor's task is essentially thankless. If you thought critics had it hard, editors have it very hard. But what gives joy is to see quiet work being taken and reaching some way. 3 editors whom I worked with, Ratnottama Sengupta, Dilip Padgaonkar, and Mohanji, were very quiet people. They hardly spoke few lines. You had to reach them. They were not interested in the world reaching them. Dilip Padgaonkar of Times of India actually sat in a 4x4 room in the basement of the building when he was boss of that whole 5 floors in Delhi. When I came to Bangalore, there were 5 people in Times of India in Bangalore office in 1998. It has gone to 400 with mega offices of Economic Times, of television, of many more. So the has expanded exponentially. It is only that the space for art has not kept pace. But as somebody said, look at the volume. How many Bharatanatyam dancers are today? It is true. In Madras alone, last December, it 5,000, and Lakshmi Vishwanathan corrected me saying, no, there must be 10,000. In Madras alone, if there are 10,000 Bharatanatyam dancers, if Delhi and Khairagad and Calcutta and Rajasthan and Baroda and Bangalore, there are 2,000 Kathak dancers. If there are at least 5,000 Odissi dancers, maybe more, think of the Kathakali groups, the Yakshagana, the Kuchipudi, Manipuri, Satriya, so many traditions. We have a volume and plethora of dancers. Where is the platform? Which is why innovative steps such as these of making platforms for interaction and debate and dialogue is important. Which is why dancers have now started creating their own festivals. How much of government largesse can they wait upon? Government, sorry, is not a free run anymore. Although the government can waste a lot of money on senseless projects, but now to taxpayers' money, the government may have a point of view to say that 50 years we have spoon-fed our classical arts. For the next 25 years, we will not. And I think those days are coming when you see delinking of some of the responsibilities of the culture ministry and passing on to specialized institutions. It is a case in point of how the delinking has already begun so that more artists perhaps benefit. Of course, government process and protocols are as complex to understand as sometimes it is. भाइयों और बहनों, मैं इसी से अंत करूँगा कि हमें हर परिभाषा से दूर अपने दिल की सुननी है, क्योंकि दिल ही आपको वो मार्गदर्शक देगा जिससे आपको ज्ञान और सम्मान और शान और शायद थोड़ा बहुत दान भी मिल जाए. May I now request Sucheta ji to kindly come? I'd like to give her the first copy of this issue, which is the first person to receive in Pune. And she's the reason I'm standing here. And she's an extremely gifted academician. We know her as a dancer. But if you see her as a research, as a teacher, as a guru, she's an amazing person. And after many, many years, one has connected thanks to her and Parimal Phadke ji. May I request both of them and the head of department to kindly come and receive the first copy of attendance. Parimal ji, Sucheta ji.
viewership, readership, and the ultimate sale of a magazine, the interdisciplinary nature of an editor, the responsible position, and the potential risks of being an editor, several layers of where the editor has to meander through. Our next speaker is Gopalakrishnan, a well-known writer and photographer specializing on Kerala performing art traditions. Started writing for a host of periodicals like the Indian Express, the English version, and the Matrubhumi Weekly in Malayalam at a very young age. Since the past 2 decades and a half, he contributes mostly for the Hindu periodicals such as their Sunday magazine, Literary Review, various editions of the Friday Review, and Shruti magazine of Chennai. He is the honorary editorial associate of Hyderabad-based Nartanam Quarterly, the only dance journal of the country in English and having a global readership. An officer of State Bank of India who chose to resign to focus on art studies. Since December 2010, he serves as the director of the Center for Kudiyatam of the Central Sangeet Natak Academy, the National Academy of Music, Dance, Drama under the Government of India, Ministry of Culture. He was the consultant advisor for Rose Bruford College, Kent, London, for the documentation of archives on Kerala arts with the footage of David Bolland, popular known as both KK and KKG in the Indian art scenario, and a significant source of information and reference for artists, scholars, media, and research students, including from countries abroad. He is the governing body member of the South Zone Cultural Centre and a member of the General Councils of the Kerala Sangeet Natak Academy and Kerala Folklore Academy, State Academies for Arts and Culture. Sacred Mime, his illustrated and detailed academic book on Kathakali covering all aspects of the art, will be published soon. I welcome Shri KK.
Good afternoon or good evening. Yeah. Before going to my topic, I would like to congratulate the Center for Performing Arts of Pune University for selecting this not so common or uncommon topic where there is an interaction between the critics, editors, performers, and the readers on various perspectives, from the 4 angles. And it is not an easy task for a university to coordinate such a seminar. Usually, there are a lot who pass unbiased comments and travel parallel with the critics, and their mouth-to-mouth opinion makes a difference. So these parts play a role as important as the critics. And almost all the dancers think that they are hardly rare, unlike their counterparts, even if the latter have better proven records and long for superlative remarks. This is a big challenge that both the editors and the critics face. And the sandwich may be the readers in between this. So this is why I want to compliment the university for taking up this thing. Actually, my colleague and the editor of Nartana, chief editor of Nartana, Madhavi Puranam, is supposed to attend this seminar, but she's away on a study tour to Europe and in all stages of her book. So that's why I'm here representing Nartanam as an editorial associate. And I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me. This is my first trip to Pune. And I hope in future also when some seminar like this comes, Madhavi will be abroad. And before going to my challenges, I would also like to tell you 2 sort of benefits that the speakers in the second session have, because most of the important points are already covered. So we need not repeat. So we save a lot of time and energy. And another thing, on the audience point of view, most of the time their eyes will be on the watch and not on the speaker or the ears. So I will put it very briefly what I want to say. What I understood about dance criticism is an aesthetic dialogue between the readers and the dancer. The critic is only an in-between instrument for a better progression and for a documentation for the posterity. That is how we can freely quote now Bala Saraswati or beyond that, because it is somewhere documented by the critics at some point. And as far as a journal like Nartanam is concerned, which I am supposed to speak, we have two levels of issues or problems. Basically, what an art journal faces in the country, there are very few also, is the financial supporting. There was a scheme by the government of India for a publishing grant, I think 4 or 5 years, no meeting, nothing held up. And the private business people will not, very hardly they give. Thanks to Sunilji, Nalli started giving some advertisement for Nartanam after 14 years of his existence. That also happened in the recent issue only. And as my brother Ashish already mentioned, it's a great threat, reduction in the number of readers. Even the dancers are interested to read only their reviews, not the whole issue. And I don't think even in the audience, how many people subscribe Nartanam? In the dances, I don't think. I have the latest 2 issues here, so I'm also making a commercial business here. Suppose somebody wants to subscribe, I'm here. I'm sorry, my paper. Okay. And what happens? I can tell you one example. Often we get emails or telephonic inquiries from many dance scholars. In that particular issue, there is one paragraph mentioned about something. Can you please email us, talk about it? They don't want even the full article, only that particular paragraph. Maximum, they will ask, they want that particular article. Whereas from the West, what I feel is, they at least ask for the whole issue. Because when we released Mani Madhav Chakra special last year, we got around 30 requests for the only single issue from Paris, from France and Germany. Only for one issue. And other departments, they want only that particular page or that paragraph, that's all. So we had to change our attitude. Why? Because we all work together, like a family, a father, mother, grandparents, children, all live together for supporting each other for a well-being. Here also, we all have to be together, supporting each other for everybody's cause. And mostly, another thing I felt, dancers are more concerned only about their own reviews, not even their counterparts' review. They read only their review. And even if they are forwarding some review, some page, they will ensure that other reviews scanned out. I mean, in the Photoshop or wherever it is, they remove it, they put only that part. You know? And everyone expects only superlative comments. That, I need not explain about it. And another thing we face is dealing with dancers proposing critics for their festivals. And sometimes, the review will come with a pressure because basically I can tell you, when I was in a bank, just for one article, I was transferred from State Bank of India from branch to another branch because I made a review and that particular person who affected happened to be the son-in-law of a minister. But that time State Bank of India had a very strong union, so they protected me. So I was saved from the particular transfer. This happened just because of one article. And I think, personally that time, even still I think, that is a compliment to me. So it came in a bad sense, because at some point my wordings, my remarks have affected somebody. So in an indirect way, it is a blessing in disguise. And we address this issue in Nartanam by ensuring that editorial decision, we don't cover individual dancers, we cover only national festival deputed dancers, and Nartanam will depute or assign the critics to overcome that. And there is another specific issue, which is particular to a dance journal, the only dance journal, that India being a vast country, being several art traditions, and we have micro and everything. Even in each state, in Kerala, we have 5 classical art traditions, unlike other states. Even you cannot find a person capable to write on all the Kerala art traditions. and especially writing into English, the technical jargons, everything. Most of our good articles are contributed by Leelaji and Sunil Bhai, because they had that background. But now, coming to the next generation, it's very, very difficult. I can quote you one example what I faced before joining the Nartanam editorial. I've been in Nartanam for the last 10 years, and very last 3 or 4 years back only, I became an editorial part. One day, Sharmaji, the former chief editor, rang me and told, KK, I want an article on Pattikandodi Ravani Menon. I said, sir, how many words? 800 words. Fine. It's 3 hours job is for me. And Pattikandodi, I have done a lot of studies on him. He died in 1948. Today, almost all the Kathakali artists are his disciples. That he was the first teacher of the Kerala Kalamandalam. And before dying in 1930, he made a note on several observations on Kathakali, and I kept in my personal archive a scanned copy of all the notes with me. So it is easy. When I sent the article, Sharmaji, I sent the article. He told, I don't check my email regularly. You forward it to Madhavi Purana. I called Madhavi. Madhavi posted 5 questions. I answered. Then she started 10 questions. I answered. Finally, we went on a fight and it took 1 month. And fortunately now, it has become a 6,000 word almost article with a lot of archive photographs. That is the only thorough study on Pattikandodi Ravani Menon who died in 1948. So today, looking back, I am proud. I could produce, even I sometimes I think whether I have written that much pain I have undertaken that time. A lot of fight with Madhavi also. And even once I called Sharmaji, will you please ask this lady calling me and propose so many questions? Because every time I went to Shornur, where his son Palpanaban Nair, who died in 2007, after that only I wrote. If he was alive, it was easy for me. I had to go through the papers, I had to talk to Kalamandala Satyabama teacher. His son's wife was another principal of Kerala Kalamandala and the living mother of Mohiniyattam. So I had to scan their old albums, scan the photographs, talk to people, went to again go to the village to talk to Ramangutti Nair, that he was alive, the only living disciple of Pattikandodi. So it's a big task. But it was an aesthetic journey for me, like a pilgrimage. Whenever I go to meet the Ashans, the old artist, though it cost me money, time, everything, it is always like a pilgrimage. We come back with a lot of enthusiasm and feeling and respect. So in that way it was possible. And when we deal with the technical jargons, and when we translate it into English, that is another big problem coming. Finding out the exact, or we have to give the exact word, and even if one spelling mistakes. In Kerala we say Kali. There are 2 meanings. Kali is a character. As well as it has another meaning, Kali. One anger and everything. So how to make it correct? And during the time passes, some of the macro elements in Indian dance becomes micro elements. For example, I can tell you, till 1950s, the Kudiyattam artists used the word Pustam. Pustaka means book, but Pustam, P-U-S-T-A-M, Pustam. And Kathakali, old generation Kathakali artists also used, but nobody knows. Now it has become a very micro, even micro among the micro like that. But when we research into it, we came to know that that is a word mentioned by Bharata in Natya Shastra about stage properties. The stool, the weapons, everything, all some branches of trees that use on stage. This comes under the category of Pustam. And Kalasham. Kalasham is a common Malayalam word to put an end. And Kathakali, the dance segment between 2 stanzas are called Kalasham. And when you go back and refer to Mandakandra Bose, the Sun scholar, we understand that Kalasha is a word used in ancient India for something to an end, put an end, and which derived from the word Arabian word Kalash. So like that it goes. Kalas. But in Arabic she used the word X, we use K, but the meaning is same. It goes like that. So every point you get a doubt, something clarify, your doubts are increased. When you further clarify, it's again increased. It's very complicated, but at the same time, you come back, pleasure, a sense of pleasure, that something, our knowledge is improved, which we can share with the readers. And an editor, supposed to be not a master, should be a jack of all, but master of none. They should have common familiarity with the terms, significant things. They should have the contacts everywhere. Just to call them to clarify. And just think, after our Leelaka, Sunil Bhai, this generation, then comes Ashish, myself, Shamhari, our generation, then think the next generation. When it comes like that, where we will clarify our doubts. It's a big question. We have to address the right time, where there are people still capable to guide you. If we lose in this part, this subject, the percentage of loss will be too heavy, which we cannot compensate later. Nothing. So there the editor's role comes. Irrespective of the fact that we have money problem, we have to borrow, everything comes. Finding the right person and assigning the next issue of Nartanam is planned criticism, on dance criticism in India. We already started the work. And fortunately, the seminar also came on the same day. I think I request the concerned, if some of the papers you can mail us before some September 20th or like that, because the issue goes to press by 30th, September 30th. By 10th, October 10th, it should be out. We may be able to carry it in the coming editions. And we, in the editorial as well as the dancers, we also discussed, we post a question, what is tradition? When we come in the article, tradition, living legend, legendary, these are the things we face. What is tradition? There's a big poet in Malayalam called Kumaran Ashan, one of the very famous poet. He wrote a poem in 1920s. Innale cheydor abadam nalatte shastramadavam. The blunder you do today, follow it, repeat it, then it becomes the tradition. And when you look into dance and dance training, many times you can see that. Several elements we call tradition, upkeep of tradition and everything. From where it started, everything has a beginning. And when you deconstruct the classical dance tradition, you go back to the roots of the folk traditions, the regional ethnic tradition. From there it is stylized. Many people done, but the time proved which are the things to be accepted, which are the things should not be accepted. That is why we have now grown up to 8 classical dance traditions, which some few years back it was 6 or 7, then again 5, it goes like that. And another remarkable thing we noticed in Kerala, when we talk about dance criticism, in the 15th, 16th century, there was a Sanskrit text came out. Nobody knows the author. That was a very highly critique on Kudiyatam, called Nadangusham. When an actor says something is a beautiful flower, he go on elaborating, thinking about his wife like that. That particular element was completely criticized by the Sanskrit scholar. And this is perhaps, I think it may be one of the first theatre or danceism coming in the 15th, 16th century. Every element of dance, from the purview of Natya Shastra and as well as for the audience point, criticized, completely criticized. And when we pass 6, 7 centuries after that, we realize that these criticisms are for the betterment of the art and to guide us a torchlight to appreciate and go further deep. So if a critic is now writing, that should have been it should have been like that, or it should have been presented in a better way. That is a torchlight to the dancer telling that they are using in a very polite way that I should have been more careful. I should not take it, once I became a famous, I should not take a performance for granted. I should have been more careful. And thanks to our contributors and associates, still Nartanam could make classy issues. This is irrespective of these brainstorming exercises we undergo in curtain, such as special issues focusing on Bala Saraswati, 60 years of Indian classical arts traditions, post-independence scenario, Manipuri Satriya special issues on Burju Maharaji, Shambhu Maharaji, Kolucharan Mahapatraji, Pankaj Charandas ji, Nadraj Ramakrishna ji, Uday Shankar ji, Sachin Shankar, Chandralega, Lakshmi Narayana Shastri, Rukmini Devi Arundel, Mani Madhava Chakar, Meenakshi Sundaram Pillai, Vembatti, Chinna Satyam Vedantam, Satyanarayana, Kittappa Pillai, latest one, last year. So all this process involve a lot of work, energy, and involving artists, brainstorming people, identifying people, everything is involved. My paper fell down, it got misplaced, the order. That's the tragedy. No, it's already, yeah, numbers are there. Yes. Yeah. And another thing what we face, a dance journal is very different from a magazine review. I do write for Hindu also. We have 800 words, we know that. So in that we have to, and what happened in some point, I think Hindu is slightly better in that. In my experience, the Chennai editions, most of the editors of magazine thinks that deleting is editing. Just delete one paragraph or just delete one sentence. That is, deleting is editing. Actually, it is not rewriting. But I have very fantastic experience when I was giving book review for the Hindu, Tuesday All India page. Even if one sentence has to be compromised, Mr. Sambat, the former editor, Sambat ji called me and asked, Keke, I am changing this word to this word, or I am combining this. Like that also it happened with Sunday magazine many times. When they space something, they want to reduce one paragraph into one sentence or two. They sometimes send me back and ask me, within half an hour, 1 hour, you please mail us. So many times I have done that. This is not a lot. We cannot expect every time and always. And before concluding my speech, having said that, I would also mention that on the side of all these things, this uniqueness in Indian dance scenario, the variety and everything, the vibrancy, the regional traditions, which all complement each other, everything, that makes the art aficionados feel that we live in a unity in diversity, because we often say that dance and theater has their its own language. Language is not the problem. So we live on that compared to many other countries of the world. And before concluding my speech, I just wanted to tell, the session, one girl asked a question about she wanted to take up dance criticism, and Leelaji said the language part also. One thing I advise you, you can focus both regional, but you focus on in English right from the beginning, because then the scenario is very big. Even if one newspaper push you down, you have the better options. And to get trained in the language, start writing letters to the editors. That's the best thing. You keep on writing letters to editors. Some of them will be published. Then your name will be noticed. And the editor is always going by the names most of the time, because freelancers are always uninvited guests. We have gone through that stages. Now we are assigned for articles. We can approach the director directly. But when you start, remember, you are the uninvited guest. The priority is often not on the quality of your writing. Often it is related to your name also. So keep on establishing your name, like writing letters or commenting on some articles, interacting. It's an exercise to improve your writing skill as well. I think I must conclude now. And thanks for tolerating me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It is amply clear that the editor is doing the balancing act, handling the marketing and sale on one hand, and yet keeping his discerning power in understanding art and arts criticism intact. And of course, editing is not pseudo-editing. With the advent of internet, there came a revolution, and everything was available on the net, and that also applies to criticism as well. One of the major premier websites which almost all the dancers browse for updated information is www.nartaki.com. And we thought it was befitting that the editor of this magazine should be a part of this seminar also, because social media is a very strong influence on everybody. And I invite Lalitha Venkat to read her next paper. Lalitha Venkat joined Arangam in 1995 as a program coordinator and manager of the Arangam dance troupe. She was a project director of the second edition of Nartaki and became the editor of Nartaki.com once it went online in 2000. She was the associate editor for books Nirmalam, The Genius of S. Sarada, Shankar Menon Purushottaman, and Krishnaveni Lakshmanan. Her papers titled as Claws of Silk. Lalitha.
Esteemed personalities in the field of dance writing. I hope to put across my experiences as the content editor of Nartaki.com, India's oldest news portal for dance. Nartaki began at a time when no one imagined that Indian class dance could have a website of its own in the beginning of the .com. The power of the internet and the force of the personal opinion have become so popular that beyond our wildest expectations, Nartaki has now completed 14 years and entered the 15th year. The printed editions of Nartaki, Directory of Classical Dance, were published in 1990 and 1997 at a time when gurus were unwilling to give contact details of their students for the address bank. With the many changes happening in phone numbers and door numbers, the founder, Dr. Anita Ratnam, decided to go online in 2000 so it would be easy to effect the changes. Having worked on the second edition, I took over as the content editor of the website. Over the last 15 years, we have grown from a mere address bank to the most exhaustive coverage of Indian dance globally. I begin with our editorial policy. Nartaki has been developed to be a democratic forum and strives to use the dynamism of the web to present reflective, objective articles, balanced coverage of events by our esteemed writers, and bring crucial issues to light. We allow free, fair, frank coverage of news and views related to dance without overstepping the limits of decency. Keeping in mind the varied readers, we ensure that the language used is not too complicated or technical. The site clearly states that all articles, reviews, etc. are the personal opinions of the writers themselves. Many a time I have had to point this out when asked, is this your viewpoint also? With writers submitting the same piece to different media, we ensure that the write-up has been given exclusively for Nartaki, as we have been accused a couple of times of copying from another website. About our contributors. We are proud to say that all write-ups in Nartaki have been voluntarily sent by our contributors, some of whom have stayed on to become our dependable correspondents from the city they live in. We also encourage young dancers and budding writers to contribute. Some have submitted interesting observations and points of view, but all this is only once in a way. The problem with young budding writers is they think reproducing the program notes like a menu with name of item, ragam, talam, followed by synopsis of the item is coverage of the event, and adding remarks like good nritta and abhinaya, graceful abhinaya, etc. makes it a critique. Commonly used are standard phrases like dance like a seasoned dancer. Nobody would have thought that it was the first time she was dancing on stage. Her abhinaya was so profound that the audience wept. And mostly how the audience was transported to heaven. How the performance will forever remain in our memories for a long time to come. Most times we look heavenwards in exasperation after so many dance performances. One Arangetram review sent to us had so many superlatives that I had to write back saying, not even Vaijantimala Bali has received such a rave review in her life. Being flooded with Arangetram listings and super glowing reviews of every debutant led to us scrapping Arangetram reviews and featuring Arangetram listings only on a small distribution. While this did not happen too often, we have observed that some writers try to bring in their personal agendas and grudges in their writing. We strictly edit out the offending remarks. Most writers prefer to play safe and submit reports. A report, especially of a seminar or symposium, is educative, but it is still a report. However, some writers wonder why their piece is carried as a report and not a review. They feel reports are less powerful and reviews are more exalted. For upcoming writers, sloppy writing seems to be the order of the day, with no attention paid to details. Some do not proof and edit their writings before emailing them to us. We receive copies filled with grammatical errors, lack of uniformity in spellings, atrocious pronunciation marks, spelling mistakes in language names, and dance items. The most errors are in spelling of items in the Telugu language. This holds good even for some established writers. We have actually received reviews with fill in the blanks, where I, as the editor, was supposed to read the details. One writer even asked me to correct the mistakes in the report of a performance that took place in another city that I have not attended. Perhaps they feel the onus of their good writing is on us as editors. While some write-ups sent in good faith may not be too attractive, they deal with dance schools or dance teachers who have been quietly doing their work but have not received recognition. So we refine such submissions and feature them. We also have some tardy reviewers who send us their reports or reviews anytime from 2 to 4 months after the performance date. And I wonder how they even remember what happened that long back when we don't even remember what happened 2 days earlier. A little bit of investigating into the concluded events listing, and there goes a piece of writing. A pity. This happened just 2 weeks back also. It is truly a boon that as a website we have the flexibility to rectify errors in case our writers realize that some factual mistakes have been made. Of course, I rectify all other errors before featuring site. Purely by instinct, I have discovered how dancers who want to be featured on Nartaki get their students, mothers, sisters, husbands, uncles, aunts, or friends to write flashy reports. Worse is dancers who write their own reviews and send it to us. Dancers have even written reviews of festivals in which they have participated, and of course they have praised themselves and their own performances highly. This also happened just 10 days back. Needless to say, we reject such submissions. Over the years, we have observed that no one wants to report on a mediocre presentation, and no one wants to write critique on senior dancers whose dancing skills are on the wane as they grow older. There are, however, a few gutsy writers who dare to do just that, and that is why Nartaki is so popular. Some writers actually request me not to edit out the criticism because a popular newspaper does just that, and we get to see a raving review of a mediocre performance. But on the whole, there is very less criticism in most reviews. We do have a terrible dearth of writers on dance, let alone quality writers. In general, especially during the season, dancers in Chennai refuse to cover programs for Nartaki, saying as dancers they feel uncomfortable commenting on other dancers. We have asked so many of them to send us reports on whatever they see, conferences, performances, anything. But the unanimous response is, Akka, I can't, I have to dance, followed by a pained expression. But the same people let loose on social forums like Facebook and blogs. Senior artists could very well send in their observations as they are experienced, but are all so busy they cannot spare the time. That's why Lakshmi Vishwanathan's column Seen and Heard is a delight. When eminent dancers do come forward to write a column, they face a lot of obstacles. Odissi Guru Ratikant Mohapatra used to write an intelligent column for us titled Ratikant Mohapatra Calling, covering seminars and festivals in Odisha. There was such a hue and cry in Odisha that he gave up writing for Nartaki. Here's an excerpt from an anonymous email that we received, open quotes. Dancers all over the world visit Nartaki. For Mr. Mohapatra to capture a bit of what is going on in Orissa is valuable for those, especially Odissi connoisseurs, who have only the internet to rely on for exposure. I cannot express to you how much more disappointing it is to read a professional artist's comments on other dancers. Mr. Mohapatra is very much involved in the Odissi world. While that might make his criticisms more credible than that of a journalist who has no training in dance, it also calls into question his personal motivations and interests. I can assure you that this is not an isolated viewpoint. I am ultimately raising an ethical question about dance criticism and hope my concerns will be taken in good faith. Close quotation, signed, sincerely committed Odissi dancer. Naturally, it is left to non-dancers to review dance performances, in which case dancers question the non-dancers on their writing. What does he know? He's not even a dancer, he's writing this and that, like that. In 2009, Nartaki conducted a wonderful week-long workshop on dance writing, guided by eminent critic Lalitha Venkat and attended by a dozen young dancers. Till date, not one report or review has come from most of them, while one prefers to write once in a way when asked on dance seminars so he can safely avoid all criticism. My work originally was only to edit the content, not to write. With this shortage of writers in Chennai, the mecca of dance, I have had to play a dual role as editor and sometimes writer, not to forget photographer as well, since dance photographers in Chennai are notorious for not bothering to give the performance photos on time. And being a website covering so many dance forms, I need to have basic knowledge of names and terms in all these forms to help me in my editing. So over the years, I have a fairly decent knowledge to help me find out what is wrong and what is right. We have been inclusive and published features related to theatre, music, art, poetry, photography, and other such sources related to dance. We feel in the last 15 years, the website has become far more inclusive than most papers and magazines. Many have welcomed this. There is now and then a voice raised in protest about how dare we feature such articles on a dance website. I now come to dance and their reactions. Dancers want only praise and glorifying reviews. No one wants critique. They are very happy with reports. A small, non-glorifying comment, however, is enough to get them bristling with indignation. They send us emails asking us to remove the critical comments. If that does not work, they send their messengers to do the needful. Would they be able to do the same if the reviews came out in the print media? If they can't take criticism, why do they want coverage of their events? Once you dance in public, you are open to both praise and criticism and must learn to take both in equal measures. But that is something that is becoming more and more alien by the day, with intolerance taking the upper hand. Interestingly, many a time, it is the husband, father, or friend throwing email tantrums and not the dancer herself. This sort of situation holds good even for good reviews. We, as well as the writer of the particular review, get very helpful phone calls or link to YouTube videos on how a particular artist is better than the artist under review. But we do have our own trusted sources of information. We stand by our writers and do not bow down to pressure tactics. While we welcome critique from our writers, we also insist that it be by way of concrete observations and pointers and not with intention to belittle the artist's efforts. Some writers do it beautifully in a mildly humorous fashion. Like, for instance, our coverage of Music Academy dance festivals by Vijay Sai. Here's a sample, open quotes. Aishwarya needs to rework her aharyam. Being small in build, the current costume only makes her look shorter. She had a large fan topped by 3 small fans and another complementary fan to her pants. All this made it look cumbersome. Hope Aishwarya doesn't bring in such fan following next time on and instead creates new fans in the audiences she presents her dance to. Close quotation. The dancer called and thanked him for the advice. We get anxious fan mails eagerly awaiting each day's coverage of the fest. In Jan 2013, we received this email from a dance lover in the US. Open quotes. I'm writing to congratulate you on the wonderful coverage we are getting to read about the Music Academy's dance festival. Your site has given me the festival's total experience at the click of my mouse, sitting thousands of miles away. I, my family and friends, small circle of classical dance lovers, thoroughly enjoy the fearless and frank reviews written by your writer and critic Mr. Vijay Sai. It has now become a daily evening ritual to meet in our friend's house and read out aloud the printouts we take from your website. They make for a great educative and informative reading to all of us, bringing us a step closer to our motherland and the rich culture we are all proud of. We all feel like we have been present in the show and have not missed anything. Your knack for minute details is refreshing to read. Close quotation. This year, we spaced out the reviews, and our overseas readers actually complained that our coverage was not entertaining. Was the writer feeling well? Was anything wrong with him? And so on. So, I read now an excerpt from the email that we received this January. First of all, a big thank you for publishing all the reviews of the Music Academy Festival. This time it was good to space them out and publish them one by one. It gave us enough time to read, and also we enjoyed waiting anxiously and curiously for each review, like we would wait for old issues of Vigatan to read our favorite stories. One thing all of us have noticed is that critic Vijay Sai seems to have become much softer in his approach. Though it felt like we were there watching the show without laughing at his usual carefree style of writing, which we all used to love so much. Is he unwell, or is it purposely that he has written these in such a soft manner? We wish he can write with his usual exuberant style. In fact, for the rest of the year, many times we go back to those academy reviews and read to have a good laugh. It is educative, informative, and also acts as a stress buster. Many of our friends and their kids who are learning dance read these and keep warned of all the points he makes in his articles. So please tell him to write normally like he used to. This lady, of course, writes on behalf of 20 other people whose names are all mentioned in the signature section. We had to explain that dance reviews of the season are not meant for entertainment, and last year's dancers had invited more critique than this year's lineup. But of course, the dancers in question for both years were so upset that they stopped talking to Anita and me. While many dancers have thanked our writers for pointing out shortcomings, there have been instances of dancers intimidating the critic over what he or she deems should not be featured on the website. We, of course, stick by our writers. Unlike the West, where critics do not socialize with dancers, it is a very prevalent situation in India. It is common knowledge that some dancers are nice to some critics to get favorable reviews. But as far as we are aware, we have received no such complaints thus far, though I did receive one email from a parent asking how much we charge for a review. Nartaki being a website with varied features, I would like to deal with them in brief, as this also requires a lot of editorial effort. In our Ask Mrinalini column, the legendary Mrinalini Sarabhai herself answers questions sent by readers. Unfortunately, we receive such embarrassingly inane questions that is a grossly underutilized column, as we have to junk 95% of the queries, and it has become more of an Ask Lalitha column for I answer most of the queries. Many dancers feel Nartaki is a dependable forum to air their grievances, criticize dance organizations or festivals, and so on. Through Roses and Thorns, Nartaki is open to featuring issues related to the dance field, and it is a very popular and much read section. While many people do call us or write to us about the many problems plaguing the world of dance through their own personal experiences, few are willing to give their names to the articles. This includes even well-known writers. They want us to write about those things, details supplied by them. We give dancers the space to express their views, but they don't want to share responsibility. So it was quite a change when we recently featured quite a daring article by dancer Methil Devika titled Mohiniyattam Missteps, A Few Observations. It has been a super success, with it being shared by many people on Facebook and receiving a flood of responses. In fact, it became so popular, last Thursday it was featured in Hindu also, the replica of the same article. To quote from the article, quotes, talking about beauty, recently I was not given upgradation to A grade at the Delhi Doordarshan. One of the jury members, a leading dancer and a supposedly good friend, called on me to reassure that the video recording from the regional station was bad and that it was only a technical flaw. She proceeded to mention that the co-judge, a Bharatanatyam critic, said that I was not visually appealing, and she had to comply to the co-judge's will as she was obliged to her on many accounts. So did I believe them? The answer is, I chose to believe them, and that was because it was not worth too much introspection. What bewildered me was when she asked me to read after 6 months and assured me that I would definitely get it. In 6 months, would I not become less appealing vividly? Am I not getting older? Close quotes. With dancers themselves behaving so badly and unprofessionally, in the absence of a formal forum to address complaints and redress grievances, Nartaki has become the gossip grapevine, with so many unsavory stories that are shared by so many from around the world. Needless to say, we cannot repeat them to anyone, but it never fails to shock us. In a way, many of the good as well as unpalatable happenings in the current day scenario are featured in Anita Says, a candid monthly editorial by Anita Ratnam that also touches upon current dance presentations. This, in a way, makes up for a lack of openness and critical appraisal by other writers. Our column, of course, attracts mixed reactions. Earlier, we had a discussion forum which ended up being more of a gossip forum, also attracting a volley of reactions the minute a review with some criticism was featured on the website. It became such a headache that we discontinued forum format, juicy as it was. Because of such irresponsible postings, we do not have a responses section for reviews, while we do have a responses blog for other sections. Anything to do with Odisha or Kuchipudi attracts a lot of attention, and I get treated to long phone calls or what is wrong with this or that. But the same people do not want to put this down in writing. Kathakali is now joining this list. Event listings is a popular section and an entertainment in itself. Everything is unique. All collaborations, concepts, ideas, jugalbandis, dance or music collaborations, all are unique, as are the titles for the productions. The dancer is super talented, the music is wondrous, and the presentation fabulous. Isn't it up to the viewer to come to those conclusions? And yes, the listings come minus date, minus time, minus venue, and in which city or country the venue is located. Some dancers just want their listing to read as touring this and that country, minus any details. They are not interested in getting audience. They only want people to know where they are touring. There is also this trend of musicians prefixing titles of Vidwan and Vidushi to their names, female Kathak dancers prefixing Pandita to their names, and most dancers their Padma Award titles. So much so it seems like many dancers in India have Padma as their first names. Even some writers have started using the title prefixes in their writings all of a sudden. We clearly encourage the use of titles in any listings or submissions. Nartaki started as an address bank. It is accessible to all and the listing is free. While dancers outside India update us with their latest contact details, in India they rarely bother. As dancers marry, remarry, separate, reunite, whatever, we have to effect the changes in the listings ourselves. This is where the gossip comes in useful. Otherwise, people are quick to point out how outdated our address bank is. To sum up, in the past, we have featured columns by Shanta Sarbjit Singh, Dr. Harsha Dehejia, and serialized scholarly papers. Our section on snippets and Did You Know are useful to many young dancers in their research efforts. In our monthly newsletter, we include information with links to other sources to make it a wholesome coverage of the month's activities. We also have a Nartaki Facebook and Twitter account to keep up with the times. If Nartaki has become a go-to place for all the dance-related info, it is because of the easy-to-read, as authentic as possible and unbiased reportage that we offer. With all this, Nartaki.com is gaining popularity and most importantly, credibility. Now there is so much information that the site gets updated almost daily. Many dancers outside India say the first thing they see when having morning coffee is Nartaki.com. Nartaki has been welcomed and is known by dancers over the world but barely in Tamil Nadu and especially Chennai, where people have not heard of it, especially the Sabhas. It is like operating in a space bubble. But our strength is our committed writers, respected scholars like Lakshmi Vishwanathan, Dr. Sunil Kothari, and Ashish Khokar, who are voluntarily contributing and supporting Nartaki, helping us survive in cyberspace as the world's popular and exhaustive website on Indian dance. Every day there are new dancers, new programs, new concepts, new dance festivals, and new controversies. So there's never a dull moment. Thank you.
Doing away with mediocrity, disinterest in writing on dance on behalf of the performing artists, ethical challenges for an editor, and the unwavering attitude which the editor needs to possess. Dance writing as a PR vehicle, and of course, controversy as an essential element towards introspection on behalf of the artist, the critic, and ultimately the art. Our next session is by Shumita Mahajan, a media professional with over 17 years of experience in media in Pune, having worked with large commercial print houses like Times of India and Sakar, has served as editor and handled Culture Beat for years, and her session and paper is titled as In Defense of the Media. Shumita.
I stand here today at the end of the session where a lot has been said, a lot has been discussed. And I stand here today as the unpopular one amongst you all. In fact, it is very refreshing to see such few numbers by this time, because I was really expecting quite a few brickbats at the end of it. All the seniors in the first row will of course bear with me. But I believe that amidst all that has been said and heard today, the voice of the media definitely has been silenced. When I say media, I'm talking of the popular print media. And when I say popular media, I talk of the commercial vehicles. Essentially, your daily mass newspaper that we get. So what am I? Ashish Bhai has mentioned earlier that we are blessed with Saraswati, and therefore we are not anything else like the butcher. But essentially, I believe, as the editor, I am the butcher. The butcher who has that, the absolutely unforgiving task of chopping, cutting, and putting into perspective. Yes, we do have to sometimes delete and not really condense, because that is what is asked of us. The whole day we have been hearing about editors as a genre. And it is becoming, it is coming forward as if the editors are the ones who are owning that space. But allow me to put this into perspective, that the editor actually has the absolutely bad work of doing harmajuri. The management tells you, why did you put this? If you don't put it, they ask you, why did you not put it? The critic comes up and says, I wrote such a wonderful piece, and you don't have even a bit of understanding of the art. You completely chopped it or did not even carry it. I would just like with a small analogy at this point of time. I'm a mother of 2 children. A normal family, every day in the evening when I get back, the ultimate question, what do we cook for dinner? And I get this whole list of options from all of them. I open the refrigerator and all I see in front of me are lady fingers. So, lady's finger it shall be. And immediately, I have my teeny-aged boy who will tell me, you are forever making lady's finger. You never listen to what I want. So, fine, trying to be the good mother, I say, okay, son, what do I make for you? You can make paneer once in a while. So I say, fine, let's have paneer as well. So I rush to the store, pick up some paneer, and hope to keep all of them happy. And then my daughter comes back from her class, and she sulks in one corner. She's already found out from her brother what the menu for the night is. Well, she's not happy at all. Neither of them are on her favorites list, believe me. It breaks every mother's heart to see either of her children or either of her many children sulk in a corner of the room. And so I know that it's pasta on her mind. She doesn't have to tell me. So trying to be a good daughter, honestly. And so I figure out, okay, can I squeeze in a little bit of pasta too? So then the lady's finger goes back into the refrigerator. Obviously, I can't make 3 things. So, that can wait for the next day. The dinner is served. My unsuspecting father-in-law comes down to the dinner table, looks at what is in offer, doesn't say anything much. Poor thing, he doesn't really have a say. And while having his dinner, just tells me, back in our days, pasta would not have entered our house because it is unwholesome. Okay, it's missed on any of the others who are present at the table. Okay, they are absolutely oblivious of what he's talking about. But it's made a point somewhere in my mind. And there I am on my guilt trip. Someone is unhappy at the dinner table. The next day, I announced to all of them, okay, we've had all our share of things. We're going to have wholesome new food. And it's going to be Karela tonight. All right? And there's going to be sprouts. Wow. So then, my husband quietly tells me, isn't there some pasta left over from yesterday night? Never mind that it is unwholesome. Never mind that it is stale. But it's still edible. And so at the end of the dinner the next day, I am left with a bowl of sprouts and the very nutritious Karela, which I sit and eat. Which is told to me, you made it, so you might as well eat it. You should not waste food. This same role is exactly what the editor is facing day in and day out. We are left to serve the difficult task of deciding what should be on the menu tonight. And often we are left with no choices. When I speak in defense of the media, I am talking about the business of running a commercial newspaper. I don't know if any of you all know that the price we pay for a newspaper, daily newspaper, is barely ₹2. Some are even less than that. And an average newspaper of 8 pages requires, on this day, 26 rupees just to be printed. Leave aside the costs of all our critics, all our employees, the overhead, we call them. 26 rupees, and you're paying 2 rupees for the same. The balance 24, which is our deficit, in addition to all other costs of running an organization. Have any of you all stopped for a moment and thought about how is it that I'm getting that newspaper daily at that 2 rupees and sometimes even free when we are doing the drives to make sure that more and more people subscribe to the newspaper? All this deficit and more, and the profit, which of course, being a business house, it allows them to make some profit, isn't it? Is being borne by the advertiser. So, yes, the advertiser is important to the newspaper. And yes, the next important people in that chain are the readers, which is you. First, the advertisers have to be made happy. How are they made happy? Well, today, even the masthead is not sacrosanct enough. You have the masthead. The Times of India is also sometimes covered completely with an ad. We can argue and debate on and off about the ethics of it. But as I quote Mr. Samir Jain, I am in the business of newspaper. If I have to do philanthropy, I have the right to choose which section I would like to do the philanthropy on. Dr. Khokar is also involved with INTAC, so I've had the honor of interacting with INTAC here in Pune. And just the other day, I had been to Tambat Ari. I don't know if any of you Punekars even know about Tambat Ari. It's right behind Shaniwar Wada. Tambat, as the word suggests, are the copper metal workers. And we today have only 100 artisans remaining in the urban part of Pune. Tambat utensils, some of you all would have the old utensils used especially for storing water. Earlier, we used to use them for practically all our utensils. Today, it's difficult maintenance. Even in my place, I've stored them away, It's too difficult to maintain in a day-to-day life. Tambat has been taken up by Intac, and for the last 10 years, Intac has worked with the community just to get them the status of a heritage art. It took them 10 years from the government to get them recognized by the Ministry of Culture as a heritage art. And now it's up to review for all the funders or the philanthropy funders to take this up. So you have Intac representatives preparing project reports and endless things just to get them restored. Is it good? Definitely not. But I have the Intacs of the world chasing me. Please write about my heritage arts. I have the tamasha artists, the launi artists coming to me and saying, "Aho tai amcha baddal liha ki kai?" In the same vein, I have the Shehnai players walking in with an appeal eyes. And not to mention the mushrooming number of dance gurus in the city bearing upon me, "You must cover mine." In this entire clamor for attention, how and where do I accommodate you all? I would love to have you in, but there's only that much space. Space which is not mine, which is borrowed. So my next question comes to you. Before you throw that charge at editors saying that they never have space for us, Mr. Gopalakrishnan asked, has any of you all, subscribed to Nartanam? How many of you all really understand what Ms. Venkat has come up with? Have you all really perused Nartaki and not contributed to the nuisance factor that she was speaking about? How many of you all have even seen the cover page of Attendance? I can definitely speak on your behalf. 99% of you all haven't. If Nartaki also, being a completely dance-oriented portal, has done away with Arangetrams, why is the onus on popular media to cover the same? On a certain week in the month of July, we had 32 Arangetram invitations. And they call up and they ask us, "Ek to de do." Even for a preview, 32 previews of just Arangetrams, where do my musicians go and where do my artists go? So then the question before me as an editor, who do I cut and who do I cover? It's best to just cut them all out. The problem, now here the problems will go on and I can just, we can discuss that at length. But from an editor's perspective, what I as a dance lover, a dance connoisseur, believe is probably the way to look for a solution is that we are too factional. We are completely broken into various islands. In a small city like Pune, I think Suchita Dai herself will not be able to say how many gurus are currently in operation. Leave aside the number of dancers who are there, various styles. Where is the cohesion? Who decides which dance institute really is running by the rules, which isn't? If the dancers themselves cannot figure out from the bad, how do we as editors decide who comes on that page and who doesn't? So obviously the reviews page turns into leisure later to time pass, and time pass later gets into free-for-all. So then the Sudoku and the quiz and the jumbles take precedence over the review. Please do not point fingers at the newspaper, because where are the readers? Exclusive reviews with a lot of technical jargon are not for my mass readers, are they? We in the same vein say that this is a classical art form meant for classes and not the masses. Then why the appeal to the mass to come and read about you? Then all we are left with is report. Then who do we choose? We have a Hema Malini performing at the Shanivar Vada, and we have 15 other local, equally, if not better, talent being presented within the city. My photographer opts for Hema Malini because she makes a better picture on the front page. Am I to be blamed for that? Because my reader definitely will stop for a moment and look at Hema Malini, appreciate her beauty at this age, if not her dance. But I cannot say the same about a local artist. Unfortunately, I am not taking credit for this, but this is the reality, friends. I would love to believe that we live in a utopian world, and I would love to believe that the critics, and I'm saying the critics definitely are well versed in what they are saying, but who is listening to them? The other problem, as it's already been covered, but I would like to touch on that. When we did, in 1990s, early 1990s, I was also a rookie reporter one of those years. And I used to write on dance, which was my passion. You were too junior to cover a Sonal Mansingh. So who gives you the right to write about a Sonal Mansingh? And so you have a very senior journalist from the newspaper, never mind, he doesn't know anything of the dance language, writing on Sonal Mansingh. And believe me, we have perfected the art of the words like mesmerizing, enthralling, enticing, you name it. But what am I left with? Zilch, nothing. Sonal Mansingh remains big, continues to be big. It's not her fault at all. But what have my readers got to do with it? My readers have got to, the layman gets to know that Sonal Mansingh is it, and all our local artists, no, they measure up. Because everything that she does is mesmerizing. Recently, a very encouraging trend, as my students say, isn't it very encouraging, ma'am, when we see Maharashtra Times is covering a lot of culture. So, great, good for them. Do we pause to see what is being covered in that culture? All we see are lifelike pictures which are cut out, beautiful pictures, well-done portfolios which are put there, and small 4 lines, so-and-so X, looking beautifully while she strikes a Krishna pose. Okay, there goes my dance repertoire in the page. Whatever little space is remaining, we speak about this program is coming up and that program, and as rightly said, everything is new and unique and novel. And then I get calls, you must come for this. You never come for our shows only. If 32 Arangetrams I have to attend, and I do decide to go for one, well, God forbid, next day I will not live to see another day. So I rather opt not to go for any of them. The problem is the problem of plenty and no control. The doctors in the city, Pune has got a fantastic medical history. They are having an association of medical professionals. They are all associated with that association. And they have a periodic journal which records every new novel technique which has gained some kind of, achieved some kind of results, which is grossly missing from our styles. Yes, we are an aesthetic experience, but how about the recording, the documentation? And yes, niche magazines is the way out. Do not impose upon borrowed space. Create something of your own. That is probably the only solution that we have as editors. For me, it would be a matter of pride to be able to really edit, in the true sense, a dance page, truly edit a music space, truly edit XY, and let's create some more space for all those who really don't have any representation. It's time we moved out of patronage seeking. It's time we moved out of going out with the bowl. I'm sorry to use such harsh terms, but please cover me, please must write about me. It is your duty. You also get the 2% coverage in the government CSR or whatever. Really? Are we really that distraught? Has our art really come to that stage when we have to seek approval? In defense of media, as on a last note, because I know it's been a long day, I would just like to leave you all with a point to ponder upon. If you have created something, and if you have the conviction of what you've done, please create a space of your own where there can be discussion. Critics are not only existing to write in popular media. They're willing to come even on a one-to-one and talk to you about your shortcomings. So if you think that the media is responsible for the non-popularity of dance, think again. Because in that case, a lot of things would not have been popular. There's only that much space. So whose space is it anyway? It is the management space, not yours. Thank you.
The internal machinery of a media house, the macro, and the internal machinery editor's mind, the micro. We are closing today's session, but before we close, if you have any questions, this is the time to post. Any questions to the editors? Okay. We close today's session, and tomorrow at 10 we meet for the third focus group of dancers. Thank you again.